On the surface, it was just another Thanksgiving dinner, a cozy house, a family gathered, an open photo album on the table. But when he leaned in and whispered, "Look at the photo and act normal," Emily knew something was about to explode. Because some memories don't stay buried, they return with force. And sometimes, all it takes is one photograph. Want to know what happens when buried trauma resurfaces at the dinner table? Stay with Emily's story and subscribe now for more gripping tales of truth, survival, and silent strength. During Thanksgiving dinner, my fiancé whispered, "Look at the photo and act normal." Chapter 1. Beneath the Surface. The November wind whistled through the historic streets of Portland, Maine, rattling the windows of Emily Parker's Victorian home. Inside, warmth radiated from both the crackling fireplace and the bustling kitchen, where Emily, 32, meticulously arranged cranberry sauce into a crystal dish. Her honey-blonde hair was pulled back into a neat chignon, revealing a face with striking features, high cheekbones, intelligent green eyes, and the beginning of smile lines that hinted at a life of expression. "Need any help in here?" Nathan appeared in the doorway, 6 feet of confident posture in a cashmere sweater. At 38, his dark hair with touches of silver at the temples and patrician features gave him the distinguished look of someone who belonged in the pages of coastal living. His law firm had just made him partner, completing the picture of success that their friends envied. Emily glanced up, her smile automatic. "I've got it under control. Could you check if your mother needs anything? She's been awfully quiet in the living room." Nathan nodded, his hand briefly squeezing her shoulder before he disappeared down the hallway. Emily exhaled slowly, rolling tension from her neck. 5 years together, 3 engaged, and she still felt herself straightening when he entered a room, a reflex she couldn't quite shake. By 6 o'clock, the dining room glowed with candlelight as 8 family members gathered around the antique mahogany table. Emily's sister Kate sat with her husband and teenage daughter. Nathan's parents, Eleanor, a retired English professor with sharp eyes that missed nothing, and Richard, a cardiologist who spoke in measured tones, occupied the other end. Nathan's brother Michael and his wife Jennifer completed the tableau. "Before we eat, I'd like to toast to Emily, who has outdone herself again. To the woman who makes this house a home." "To Emily!" everyone echoed, and she felt a flush rise to her cheeks. Conversation flowed as smoothly as the wine. Michael's promotion, Jennifer's charity work, Kate's daughter's college applications. Emily participated with practice ease, asking thoughtful questions, laughing at the right moments. She had always been good at this, making others feel seen, deflecting attention from herself. "Emily, dear," Eleanor said during a lull, "Nathan tells us you've been painting again. That's wonderful." Emily nodded, cutting a small piece of turkey. "Just small watercolors, nothing special." "She's being modest," Nathan interjected, placing his hand over hers on the table. "She's incredibly talented, always has been." His thumb traced circles on her wrist, and Emily felt a familiar tightness in her chest. His pride in her was real, she knew that, but so was the unspoken expectation. "Don't contradict me. Don't diminish what I've built up." "We should bring out the photo album from our trip to the Greek islands," Nathan suggested as dessert was served. "Mom, you'd love the architecture." Emily's fork paused halfway to her mouth. The Greece trip. 18 months ago, but sometimes it felt like yesterday. "That sounds lovely," Eleanor said. "I'll get it after dinner. Emily replied, her voice steady despite the sudden dryness in her throat. Later, as everyone settled in the living room with coffee and pumpkin pie, Emily retrieved the leather-bound album from the bookshelf. She sat beside Nathan on the sofa, the weight of the book heavy in her lap. This was Santorini, she explained, turning to a page of whitewashed buildings against an impossibly blue sea. The sunsets there were unbelievable. "You two look so happy," Jennifer remarked, pointing to a photo of Emily and Nathan on a restaurant terrace, sunset painting them golden. That was before, Emily thought, before the argument in the hotel room, before the bruise shaped like fingers appeared on her arm. "Oh, this one's my favorite." Nathan flipped forward several pages to a photo of them standing before the ruins of a temple. Emily's smile was wide, her posture perfect. No one would guess that moments before, Nathan had gripped her arm and whispered through clenched teeth, "Look at the photo and act normal." While the others admired the scenery, Nathan discreetly slipped a loose photograph from his pocket and placed it on Emily's lap, hidden by the album. Her blood turned to ice water as she recognized it. The very photo from that terrible day. "Look at the photo and act normal," he murmured, too low for anyone else to hear. Emily's vision narrowed to a pinpoint. The voices around her became distant and muffled. Inside her chest, something that had been bending for years threatened to finally break. "Emily?" Kate's concerned voice pulled her back. "Are you okay? You went pale." Emily looked up to find everyone staring at her. Nathan's hand rested on her back, outwardly supportive, secretly warning. "I'm fine," she managed, tucking the loose photo into the album, "just a bit tired from cooking all day." As conversation resumed, Emily excused herself to the kitchen for water. Leaning against the counter, she drew several deep breaths. In the reflection of the window, she caught sight of herself, poised, put together Emily Parker, the woman who had everything. But the woman in the reflection had a question in her eyes that could no longer be ignored. How much longer can I live this lie? If you've ever felt trapped in the perfect-looking life you've created, Emily's journey will resonate deeply. Subscribe to follow her story as she confronts the painful truth behind the picture-perfect facade in our next chapter. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is finally tell our truth. But will Emily find that courage? Join our community of storytellers and truth seekers by hitting subscribe now. Chapter 2. Fracture Lines. The kitchen had emptied of guests 2 hours ago, but Emily still stood at the sink, mechanically washing crystal that could have waited until morning. The house was quiet save for the distant sound of Nathan in his study, making phone calls he insisted couldn't wait, even on Thanksgiving night. Her hands, submerged in soapy water, trembled slightly. The loose photograph Nathan had slipped her now lay hidden in the pocket of her dress, a small rectangle burning against her hip. She hadn't looked at it again. She didn't need to. The image was seared into her memory. Athens, May 2023. The ancient temple rising behind them, tourist crowds milling about. Nathan's arm around her waist, fingers digging in just hard enough to remind her who was in control. Her own face smiling brilliantly for the stranger who'd offered to take their photo, while inside, she calculated how many more days until they flew home. The night before that photo, they'd had their worst fight yet. A waiter had been too friendly, according to Nathan. Back in their hotel room, his jealousy had exploded into accusations.
When she tried to leave the room, he'd grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks. The next morning, he'd been all apologies and tender concern, kissing the bruise he'd created, promising it would never happen again. It wasn't the first promise of that kind, or the last. Emily placed the final wine glass on the drying rack and emptied the sink, watching the soapy water spiral down the drain. When had she become this person? Someone who hid her truth behind perfect table settings and social graces. "You did it again." Nathan's voice came from the doorway. Emily turned slowly, drying her hands on a kitchen towel. "Your mother seemed to enjoy herself."
"She's always been your biggest fan." He crossed to her, resting his hands on her shoulders. His touch was gentle now, as it often was after he'd reminded her of his power. "You know how much I love watching you shine, don't you?" The familiar pattern unfolded, the threat, then the tenderness, the fear, then the false comfort. Emily nodded, unable to speak past the knot in her throat. "I've been thinking," Nathan continued, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, "we should set a wedding date. It's been 3 years since I proposed. 10 years together is long enough to wait, don't you think? People are starting to talk." "I felt we agreed to wait until your caseload lightened," Emily said carefully. "I've made partner now. There's no reason to wait." His eyes, the deep blue that had once made her heart race with something other than anxiety, searched her face. "Unless you're having doubts." The question hung in the air between them, seemingly innocent, but Emily knew better. She recognized the slight narrowing of his eyes, the tension in his jaw. "Of course not," she said, the lie bitter on her tongue. "I'm just tired tonight. Let's talk about it tomorrow." Nathan studied her for a long moment before nodding. "You work too hard. Come to bed soon." He kissed her forehead and left, his footsteps echoing up the stairs. Emily waited until she heard the bedroom door close before sinking into a kitchen chair. She pulled out the photograph, forcing herself to look at it properly. There they were, the perfect couple. Her smile believable enough to fool everyone except herself. She traced the outline of her face in the photo. When had the transformation happened? The Emily before Nathan had been vibrant, opinionated, unafraid. She'd painted bold canvases and taken solo trips to Mexico and Morocco. She had a voice that carried across rooms. That Emily had been gradually replaced by this careful version, a woman who chose words with diplomatic precision, who painted only small watercolors, nothing special, who measured success by how well she managed Nathan's moods. A text message lit up her phone on the counter. "Kate, you seemed off tonight. Everything okay? Call me if you need to talk." Emily stared at the message, her sister's concern piercing through layers of carefully constructed defenses. Kate had questioned her about Nathan before, about the subtle changes in Emily's personality, the declining frequency of their sister lunches, the canceled plans when Nathan unexpectedly needed her. She'd brushed off Kate's concerns, protecting the illusion she'd helped create. After all, wasn't she complicit? She'd covered bruises with makeup, explained away Nathan's controlling behavior as old-fashioned protectiveness, laughed off his jealous outbursts as just how much he loves me. Emily's gaze drifted to the refrigerator where a save-the-date card was magnetized to the door. Her friend Rebecca's vow of renewal ceremony next month. Rebecca and her husband celebrating 20 years together with a ceremony on the Maine coastline. Emily had RSVP'd yes for 2,
though Nathan had already complained about attending.
20 years. The thought of 20 years of walking on eggshells, of calculated smiles and hidden bruises, sent a wave of nausea through her. She picked up her phone and began typing to Kate. "I need to tell you something." Her finger hovered over the send button. What would happen if she told the truth? Would anyone even believe that Nathan, charitable, successful, charming Nathan, could be the monster he sometimes became behind closed doors? A floorboard creaked overhead. Nathan, perhaps wondering why she hadn't come upstairs yet. Emily quickly deleted the message, her heart racing. Instead, she texted, "Just tired. Talk tomorrow?" Kate's response came immediately. "Anytime. Love you, sis." Emily pressed the phone to her chest, eyes closing against sudden tears. Then, with deliberate movements, she retrieved her purse from the hallway closet and extracted her small leather-bound journal, the one place she still wrote the truth. Nathan didn't know about it. She kept it in her office desk at the gallery where she worked. Tonight, though, she'd brought it home to record Thanksgiving observations, never expecting how the evening would unfold. She opened to a blank page and began to write, her handwriting growing steadier with each line. "I can't marry him. I can't spend my life like this. I need to find a way out." The words, once written, seemed to hang in the air. Dangerous. Liberating. Terrifying. Emily stared at them until her vision blurred. Then she closed the journal, returning it to her purse. Upstairs, she heard the shower running. Nathan would expect her soon, would be suspicious if she delayed much longer. With mechanical precision, she turned off the kitchen lights, checked the locks on the doors, and started up the stairs. Each step heavy with the weight of her decision. Tomorrow, she would call Rebecca, whose husband was a family law attorney. She would make an appointment with her bank. She would begin, quietly, to build herself an exit. The photograph from Greece remained on the kitchen table, forgotten in her haste. The smiling couple staring up at an empty room, their perfect image finally revealing its cracks. Chapter 3. Into the Light. The Portland Art Gallery hummed with the quiet energy of a Sunday afternoon. Emily moved between curious visitors, answering questions about the coastal landscape exhibition she had curated. 3 days had passed from Thanksgiving. 3 days of careful planning disguised as normal routine. The artist captures Maine's mercurial weather beautifully, don't you think? She explained to an elderly couple examining a painting of storm clouds gathering over rocky shores. The way light breaks through darkness, that moment of transformation. The words resonated within her own chest. Transformation. She'd begun her own, setting wheels in motion with quiet determination. Yesterday, while Nathan attended a partner's brunch at his law firm, Emily had visited Rebecca and her husband James. She'd shown them the photograph from Greece, rolled up her sleeve to reveal a fresh bruise from when she'd announced she was thinking of a solo weekend to visit Kate. She'd shown her journal, years of documented incidents in her neat handwriting. "You're not crazy," Rebecca had whispered, holding Emily's hands, "and you're not alone." James had outlined options in his gentle, methodical way. He'd given her names of colleagues specializing in domestic abuse cases, resources for temporary housing, strategies for securing her finances. Now, in the quiet gallery with paintings of storms and sunlight surrounding her, Emily felt a curious lightness. Fear remained. She wasn't naive about the difficulties ahead, but it no longer paralyzed her. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Nathan, asking when she'd be home. "Gallery closes at 5.
Picking up dinner on the way home, she texted back. Emily? A warm voice interrupted her thoughts. She looked up to see Eleanor, Nathan's mother, standing before her in a camel coat and pearl earrings. Eleanor, what a surprise! Emily's professional smile slipped into place automatically. Nathan didn't mention you'd still be in town. I wanted to see your exhibition before heading back to Boston. Eleanor's eyes, so like her son's in color, but softer in expression, studied Emily carefully. And to check on you. You seemed distressed on Thanksgiving. Emily hesitated, years of protective instinct warring with her new resolution toward truth. It's been a difficult time, she finally said, the understatement almost making her laugh. Eleanor nodded, then glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. When Richard and I were first married, he had a terrible temper. Nothing physical, but the verbal lashing out was devastating. Emily's breath caught. In 7 years of knowing Eleanor, she'd never hinted at anything but marital perfection. I almost left him in our 3rd year, had an apartment rented and everything, but he agreed to counseling, and it saved us. She touched Emily's arm gently. I see how Nathan looks at you sometimes. It reminds me of those early days with Richard. Eleanor, You don't need to explain anything to me, dear, but if you ever need help or just someone to listen who might understand. She pressed a business card into Emily's hand. My cell number is on the back, day or night. Before Emily could respond, Eleanor moved toward a seascape painting, seamlessly shifting to casual conversation about the artist's technique. The moment of vulnerability had opened and closed like a rare blossom.
The remainder of Emily's shift passed in a blur of visitors and sales. At 5 p.m., she locked the gallery doors and walked to her car, Eleanor's card tucked safely in her wallet alongside James's list of resources. True to her text, she stopped for takeout, Thai food from the restaurant Nathan tolerated but never would have chosen himself. A small act of assertion. When she arrived home, Nathan was in the living room, reviewing case files, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up with a smile that still, despite everything, made her heart twist with remembered affection. There you are. Successful day. He rose to help her with the bags, brushing a kiss against her cheek. Very. We sold 3 pieces. She unpacked containers onto the dining table, conscious of his presence behind her. Your mother came by the gallery. Mom did. She didn't mention she was planning to. Spontaneous decision, I think. She wanted to see the exhibition. Nathan nodded, opening wine as Emily set out plates. The domestic scene was so normal, so practiced, that for a dizzying moment, Emily questioned her resolve. This was the Nathan she'd fallen in love with. Attentive, intelligent, their conversation flowing easily as they discussed art and local politics. But halfway through dinner, the familiar shift occurred. Nathan mentioned the dinner party the following weekend, hosted by the senior partner. I told Charles you'd help his wife with the planning, he said, reaching for his wine. She's hopeless at organization, and I want to make a good impression. Emily set down her fork. I can't. I have the gallery event that night. I told you about it last month. Nathan's expression hardened slightly. This is important, Emily. The gallery can survive one night without you. I'm featuring a new artist. I promised I'd be there. She kept her voice calm, reasonable. Promises to the firm that pays our mortgage take precedence over promises to struggling artists, don't you think? The edge in his voice was familiar, the warning she'd learned to heed. But tonight, she didn't. No, I don't think that, Nathan. My career matters too. His hand tightened around his wineglass. We've discussed this. Once we're married, I'm not marrying you. The words hung in the air between them, simple, clear, irrevocable. Nathan stared at her, confusion giving way to anger. "What did you say?" Emily's heart hammered against her ribs, but her voice remained steady. "I'm not marrying you. In fact, I'm leaving." "Because I ask you to help with a dinner party?" He laughed incredulously. "You're being ridiculous." Emily reached into her purse and withdrew the photograph from Greece, placing it on the table between them. "Because of this. Because of who I become when I'm with you." Nathan's face darkened. "If this is about that stupid fight in Greece, it's about all the fights, Nathan. The accusations, the grabbing, the way I've shrunk myself to avoid triggering your anger." She forced herself to hold his gaze. "I deserve better." "After everything I've done for you?" He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "The connections I've made for your career, the life I've given you?" Emily remained seated, hands folded in her lap to hide their trembling. "I'm grateful for the good times, but they don't erase the bad ones." Nathan paced, running a hand through his hair, the controlled attorney giving way to the man few people ever saw. "You're not thinking clearly. You're stressed about work." "I've never been clearer," Emily interrupted. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. I'm staying with Kate tonight, and tomorrow I'm filing a restraining order." The mention of legal action stopped him cold. "A restraining order? Based on what?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "Based on documented incidents of physical and emotional abuse. Based on witnesses who've seen the bruises." Emily stood now, gathering her purse. "My suitcase is already in my car. I packed it this morning while you were at the gym." Nathan's face contorted with fury. "You manipulative bitch! You think anyone will believe you? I'm a respected attorney. You're a glorified art saleswoman with a history of anxiety." The insults washed over Emily without penetrating. She'd anticipated this reaction, prepared for it. "Everyone will know the truth, including your mother." "My mother?" Confusion flickered across his face. "She came to the gallery today to offer her help. Apparently, she recognizes the signs." Emily moved toward the door, maintaining distance between them. "It's over. Please don't contact me except through my lawyer." Nathan lunged forward, grabbing her arm, exactly as she'd predicted he might. "You're not walking on me." Emily didn't struggle. Instead, she looked pointedly at his hand on her arm, then up at his face. "This is exactly why I'm leaving." Something in her calm certainty reached him. He released her arm, stepping back, as though burned. "You'll regret this," he warned, but the threat sounded hollow even to his own ears. "No," Emily said simply. "I won't." She walked to the door, half expecting him to follow, to make one last attempt to control her. But he remained frozen in the dining room, surrounded by the remnants of their last meal together. Outside, the November air was crisp and clean. Emily took a deep breath, sliding into her car and locking the doors. Her phone buzzed. Kate, confirming she was ready for Emily's arrival. Then another message from Rebecca. "Proud of you. Call if you need anything." As Emily drove away from the Victorian house she'd once thought would be her forever home, she felt something unexpected bloom in her chest. Not just relief or fear, but possibility. The road ahead would be difficult. There would be legal battles, mutual friends taking sides, financial challenges. But for the first time in years, Emily Parker was driving toward a future she chose for herself. No more perfect smiles hiding painful truths.
No more photographs capturing lies. Just Emily, reclaiming her voice one truth at a time. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever found yourself losing your voice in a relationship, or if you know someone who might be, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that matter, stories that might give someone the courage they need to make a change. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is tell our truth, even when our voice shakes. And if you're in a situation like Emily's, know that help is available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone, and it's never too late to write a new chapter in your story. Subscribe now and join our community of storytellers and truth seekers.